I ended up getting plastic surgery because my boyfriend is prettier and hotter than me. You can totally roast me in the comments, but hear me out. When he and I matched on Bumble, I was shocked that he would even want to talk to me. I knew right away that he was way out of my league and he was way prettier than me. Preparation to go on this date, I dieted for 3 weeks and I lost 7 pounds. I put 3 layers on of Skims compression Spanx. That's how desperate I was to look skinny. Colored my hair chocolate brown, got the butterfly haircut, got 1 ml of lip filler. And the day of the date, I actually got my makeup done, but it was such minimal makeup that he thought I wasn't wearing anything. By the end of those 3 weeks, I had completely transformed. And the first time he met me, he kept commenting how beautiful my skin was, how rosy my cheeks were, pretty and plump my lips were. I actually believed I had no makeup on. I realized everything I did worked. I knew from this moment on I had to keep up the act. Now, no way in hell was I ever gonna have a small waist. So I went to a plastic surgeon and I ended up getting 360 lipo. And I also got new boobulas, but they weren't huge, they were just a little bit bigger. How did I explain this? I told him I had appendicitis and that I had to get surgery. Have to go to part 2, it's up. I got liposuction because of my hot boyfriend. I knew I needed to keep up appearances, so I decided to just go ahead and get the plastic surgery. At this point, him and I had only gone on 3 dates. He kept telling me how much he liked me. So I got the 360 lipo, I got a boobie og, only one size up. Got cheek and under eye filler, I got a little bit more in my lips. Told him I had appendicitis and this is why I was getting surgery. He came to my apartment twice while I was recovering. 3 weeks later, I looked so much better. And around that time is when he asked me to be his girlfriend. I kept eating healthy and working out and I kept losing weight, but I knew that I needed to keep up the makeup look. He thought I wasn't wearing any makeup when we met. Whenever I stayed over at his place, I would wake up earlier and put a little bit of makeup on. It's been a year and he still doesn't know about any of it. I don't care. I'll continue to put makeup on and style my hair in the mornings before he wakes up. My body looks a million times better now that I actually have a waist. And I've been putting in the work and gained lots of muscle. All of my friends have congratulated me for my glow up. My life has gotten so much better. People treat me better. I even got the position I wanted at work. Now I have the hottest, most amazing boyfriend. This wouldn't have happened had I not put the work into myself. Would you have done the same, or is this totally cringe?
Storytime about how I found out that my boyfriend was cheating on me with his homeboy. So a little background information, I was 18 and in my senior year of high school. I met my boyfriend Kevin in our junior year and then we started dating our senior year of high school. We had a really good relationship and we would talk almost 24/7. We would text each other all throughout class, we would call each other every night, stay on the phone for hours. We would even skip classes together and I thought that we were deeply in love. The only time that we wouldn't hang out was whenever his best friend needed him. Like he would skip dates that we had planned and stuff like that. And I honestly just thought that he was being a good friend. But my best friend Taylor suspected that he might secretly be gay and cheating on me with his best friend. And I personally thought the only reason why she thought this was because his best friend was openly gay. But I didn't believe this because him and I were also intimate with each other. But then I started noticing some really weird stuff. Like the one day while we're sitting at lunch, Kevin and his best friend are sitting next to each other and I see them holding hands under the table. I asked him about this, he said it was because his best friend had social anxiety. Fast forward, the one time we're all at this party and I saw them kiss. Like part 2 about how I found out that my boyfriend was cheating on me with his homeboy. So like I said, the one time I see them holding hands under the table and whenever I asked my boyfriend why he was doing that, he was like, oh, it's because my best friend has social anxiety. And I'm like, okay. And then fast forward, we're all at this party and I see them kissing. And when I confronted him about it, he was like, oh, like we just like to play pranks like that sometimes. And I believed him because I really didn't think that my boyfriend was cheating on me with his homeboy. So fast forward to his birthday. I wanted to surprise him, so I went to his house, and to my shock, I see Kevin hooking up with his best friend. And when I confronted him about it, he was like, no, like, I swear I'm straight, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, bro, why are you lying to me? Like, there's no reason to lie anymore. I caught you. So at that point, I literally just left his house and I blocked him, and I even begged my parents to let me move schools because I was so embarrassed. And from now on, I learned to not trust guys who are too close to their friends. Like, any guy who chooses their friend over me now is sus.
My best friend always projects her insecurities onto me. Should I break up with her? My best friend and I have known each other for exactly 2 years. We met in college and hit it off right away. We're both Latinas and we come from really big families. I have 2 other sisters and we get along really well. We always hype each other up and have each other's backs. A few months after I started my friendship with my best friend, let's call her Lucia. Lucia started showing some really toxic qualities. Sometimes I think I'm just reading too much into it or overreacting. So you let me know. First of all, she would start talking bad about my sisters in front of me. She would make comments like, wow, your sister's gained weight, or wow, your sister has cellulite. When she first did this, I would just defend my sisters, but then I realized that that just made her want to keep talking more trash. So if she ever said anything about my sisters, I wouldn't say anything. At the time our friendship started, I had a really big crush on this guy. He and I went to the same gym and I never had the courage to speak to him, not until my sister convinced me to. I finally spoke to him at the gym and we actually hit it off. We would work out together every now and then and he finally asked me out on a date. The day of our date, my best friend came over to my house, and while I was getting ready, she started saying really weird things. At first she told me that I should should wash my hair because it looked oily. I told her my hair was freshly washed. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I could see her reflection and she just rolled her eyes at me. This is when things started clicking. Part 2 is up. My best friend projects her insecurities on me. Should I break up with her? I could see through the mirror that she had rolled her eyes at me. Then she started making other comments about my appearance. Mind you, I'm getting ready for a date. When I showed her the outfit that I was gonna wear, she said it was too revealing and that I would probably scare him off. Wasn't even revealing, it just showed my legs. It was a cute sundress with the cardigan on top. I told her I thought I looked cute. And then she said, "Allá tú, amiga." As I'm finishing up my hair and my makeup, she says, "Wow, you're gonna wear that much makeup?" But the way she said it was so aggressive, I actually took off the lipstick I was wearing. Instead, I just put on lip balm. I looked at her and she had a smile on her face. It was like she was happy she finally got to me. The date went really well and he actually turned into my boyfriend a few weeks later. And guess what? My best friend started judging everything about him. The first time she met him, she started saying, "Wow, I think he's balding," which he isn't. And even if he was, I wouldn't care. She also started making comments about him staring at other girls, something I never even noticed that he did, and I would know I'm with him all the time. It's like she was trying to plant all these insecurities in my head. One day, Lucia and my boyfriend and I are in his car. We were heading to the movie theaters when Lucia says, "Wow, you put on way too much perfume. It's giving me a headache." That's when my boyfriend told her that if it bothered her that much, she should just go home. And out of nowhere, Lucia swung her fist at him. She actually tried to attack him. Part 3 is up. Best friend always projects her insecurities on me. Should I break up with her? That's when she started swinging at my boyfriend. Luckily, I yelled at her and she stopped. It's like she was upset at me for yelling at her for trying to hit my boyfriend. That's when my boyfriend kicked her out of the car and I asked him to calm down. I got out of the car with Lucia and asked her to calm down. That's when she told me that I needed to break up with him and that he was clearly abusive. I told her he was just defending me. Then she said, "He doesn't need to defend you. I'm only saying this because I care about you." Then she called herself an Uber and left. My boyfriend and I went to the movie theaters and we had a really nice night. Here's some more examples of her projecting on me. While we were getting ready for a friend's birthday party, she started pointing out some stuff on my body. She said, "Your elbows are really dark. You need to fix that." Another time I decided to get some highlights and she said they looked horrible on me. She said I looked like a JLo wannabe. Luckily, I didn't care and I just kept the highlights. Mind you, 2 months later, she got the exact same highlights. Now, I know that she cares about me because she does have my back. She'll help me with anything I need, honestly. And I wonder if I'm overreacting, but I don't think so. I just don't know how to tell her that she's toxic. She makes me feel bad. What should I do?
Storytime about how I almost got kidnapped at a grocery store. So a little background information. I was 16 and it was during the summertime. And I was super excited because I had just got my license. But my parents had this idea that if they made me drive around and do all their errands, that I would be a better driver. So I was pretty much like their BITCH. Anyway, so the one night my mom wanted to make this recipe that she saw on TikTok. And she didn't have the right seasonings for it, so who did she tell to go to the store? Yours truly, me. And on Sundays, the mini market that was in our town would close at 4 o'clock. So I had to drive like 30 minutes away to the nearest Target. And when I got there, I had to park in the back because they had like 10 handicap spaces up front, another 10 for when you sit there and they bring your shit out to you, and another 5 whenever you're picking something up that you already ordered. But in all honesty, that didn't bother me because I had never heard about any girls getting trafficked at a grocery store. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I almost got kidnapped at a grocery store. So like I said, I parked all the way in the back of the parking lot. I mean, okay, not all the way in the back, but I was damn near close. So I go in and I'm not too familiar with this Target. I've only been here a few times because the mini market in my hometown is usually the one that I go to. So I'm looking around and I realize that there's this little girl following me. But it seemed like she was more like keeping an eye on me. Like she would stand like 20 feet behind me, but just like stare at me, you know, peek through the aisles. And she had did that for like 10 minutes. But whenever I finally went up to the checkout, she was gone and this woman came up to me. She was like, "Oh my gosh, have you seen my daughter? She was running around the store. I don't know where she is." So I described the little girl to her that I saw. And she was like, "Yeah, that's her. I can't find her. Will you please help me look for her?" And I didn't have the time for this because my parents were going to wring my neck. But I said part 3 about how I was almost kidnapped at a grocery store. So like I said, she asked me to help look for her daughter. And I was like, "I'm going to go tell a Target employee." And she was like, "No, don't worry. They're all already looking. They have security all over the place." And she was like, "Will you help me check the parking lot because I don't know if she left." She was like, "I've been having them look for the past 10 minutes. So I didn't think anything of this because I didn't think that some lady would try to kidnap me. So I went into the parking lot with her and I'm like, "Okay, where do you think she would have went? Like, did you drive here? Did she maybe go to the car?" And she was like, "No, we live like 5 minutes down the road. Do you think that we could get in your car and drive around?" And I said, "Yeah," because I thought that it would speed up the process. And my dad's truck was really high off the ground. So while we're walking, I'm like, "I think someone's under my car." And she was like, what? No. It's probably just the shadow. And I'm like, no, there's someone under my car. So I turn around to walk back into the store and she starts like pulling my arm towards my car. So an employee called the police whenever I went in there, and long story short, they were trying to kidnap me.
My crazy toxic boyfriend made me get a lie detector test to prove that I wasn't lying about everything he thought I was lying about. He had substance abuse problems, but the things he thought I was lying about was my identity. He also thought I was an sex worker and that I was probably an escort, because the only thing that pretty girls can do, of course, is rely on men's money, giving their bodies like that. But at the time, I thought that I needed to help him through his struggles. So whenever he would question me about things, I would obviously deny, but this made him even angrier because he loved fighting. And like most abusers, they're always looking for an excuse to get into a fight with you. So one day he says, would you take a lie detector test to prove that you are who you really are and that you're not lying about all the things I think you're lying about? I thought I needed to do it since we were in love. The lie detector test happens to be in this man's apartment. The moment this man sees me, all he starts saying is how beautiful I am. And he keeps saying things like, wow, you have such a great body. If you were my girlfriend, I would be jealous too. This man did everything in his power to make me nervous. Once we're finally done, the first thing my boyfriend says to me was, had you met that guy before? And I was like, no. And then he said that I did a really good job at flirting with him the whole time. I broke up with him later that night. And then I found out that this guy was a total scammer and totally invented the results. Told my ex that I failed the test, but there was really never a test. So if you're in a relationship and you feel like your boyfriend's accusing you of doing things that obviously you're not doing, maybe it's time to get out.
Storytime about why I will never let my sister pet sit for me ever again. So a little background information. I was 18 and it was the summer before my freshman year in college. And it was towards the end of the summer, so I decided that I wanted to take a vacation with a few of my girlfriends before we all went off to the different colleges that we were going to. And I have a lot of pets. I have 4 hamsters, 2 snakes, a tarantula, 2 birds, and 1 fish. So I asked her if she could watch all of them. She said yeah, so I wrote her out a schedule of when they need to be fed. And I wasn't even going to be gone a week, so it would be pretty easy because I already cleaned all their tanks and everything like that. And I wasn't worried at all because I trusted my sister. She had 2 dogs and a cat, so I thought she was going to be fine. I called her the first 2 days. Everything seemed to be going well. And I called her on the 4th day and she didn't answer the phone. So I called my mom, asked her if she could get a hold of her. And my mom said that she spent the 2 days at her boyfriend's house, like for part 2. Part 2 about why I will never let my sister pet sit for me ever again. So like I said, I called my mom asking if she could get a hold of her, and she said that she spent the last 2 days at her boyfriend's house. And the worst part was, my sister was the only one with a key to my apartment. So my sister calls me the next day and she's like, hey, sorry, like I was at my boyfriend's house. And I was like, who fed the animals? And she was like, well, I just put enough in their cages so that way they would be fine for like 3 days. And she was like, don't worry, I'll sleep over there tonight to make sure they're okay. So I'm like having a fucking panic attack right now. Anyways, so fast forward, I get home early in the morning and my sister's sleeping on the couch, but my sister brought over her animals too. So I wake my sister up and I'm like, hey, like, how are all the animals? She's like, oh, they're fine. And then we walk into the kitchen and the fucking bird cage is open and my birds are missing and her cats are nowhere to be found. So now I'm freaking the fuck out. So then I go to check on the rest of my animals, like for part 3. Part 3 about why I will never let my sister pet sit for me ever again. So like I said, we walk into the kitchen and the bird cage is open and my birds are nowhere to be found and neither is her cat. So at that point, I run to check on all of my other animals. Thankfully, the snakes were fine, so I go to check on my tarantula and he's missing. So now I grabbed my sister's dogs, locked them in my room, and I went to go check on my hamsters. Yeah, she forgot to feed them the whole week because one of them ate the other one. So at this point, I'm having like a mental fucking breakdown and I'm moving all the furniture in the living room and everything like that. And we lift up the couch and we see her cat bolt out from under the couch. After that, I look under the couch and my bird is literally torn into pieces under the fucking couch. A few days later, she texted me and she was like, hey, like, I feel so bad. Like, let me buy you a new bird and a new tarantula. And to this day, 2 years later, I still don't know what happened to them.
I found out my boyfriend didn't use protection when he cheated on me. If you want to send me your story time, slide into my DMs. I ran through boyfriend is a slut. 2 years ago, we met through friends at a party. He was asking for my number before he even knew my name. To be perfectly blunt, I thought he was kind of ugly. Wasn't anything particularly special about him. Wasn't well-spoken or intelligent. Wasn't good-looking. He didn't have a high-paying job. The only good quality I found in him that night was that he made me laugh. Not just once, but basically the entire night. I really underestimated just how much a man making me laugh made me feel good. So I gave the poor ugly guy a chance. I gave him my number. 2 weeks later, I get a stupid dumb text from him. Hey, do you want to go out to brunch? And I said sure. He ends up taking me to brunch in Lavo, NYC. If you know Lavo, you know that it's basically like a club in the morning, but with brunch food. So he got a couple of drinks in me, and before I knew it, he started looking pretty. And bam, he went in for a kiss, and I let him. A month later, we were together. But I caught him texting one of his exes. I broke up with him. We got back together. I caught him talking to another girl on Instagram. We broke up. We got back together. Then he was on his best behavior for a couple of months. Go to part 2, it's already out. I found out my ran-through boyfriend didn't use protection when he cheated on me. If you want to send me your story time, slide into my DMs. Let me remind you, he was the ugly guy I gave a chance. After the 3rd time I caught him talking to a girl on Instagram, I broke things off, but then he was on his best behavior, so we got back together. This is where I severely underestimated him. You see, because I thought he was a little bit ugly, didn't have a high-paying job, wasn't particularly smart, but he could make me laugh, just didn't think he was able to get girls, especially not ones that were willing to take off their clothes in front of him. But one day I catch him scratching his thingy. Like, a lot, you know? Not normal. So I ask him, what is wrong with you? Then he starts to cry and breaks down. He says that he cheated on me with a girl and that he did not use protection. So right then and there, I took myself to the doctor and I got myself tested, and thank God I did not catch whatever he had. Turns out he has crabs. Google that at your own risk. Do you think he even apologized to me? Nope. In fact, he ghosted me. Called him and texted and he blocked me. I went to his apartment and he wouldn't let me in. This is what I get for giving the ugly guy a chance. He didn't even care for my own safety. He wasn't even gonna tell me about it. Now, how should I get revenge?
Storytime about how my boyfriend got myself and another girl pregnant at the same time. So a little background information. I was 18 and a senior in high school whenever this all happened. And I've been dating my boyfriend, who we're going to call Ivan, since I was 15 years old. And he was truly my first love, and everything was going great until our senior year. Ivan started acting super weird out of nowhere, ignoring my calls and going out way more than usual without me. And then one day, another girl answers his phone whenever I called. And when I confronted him about it, he said that it was his sister playing a prank. And I ignored these red flags, of course, because what are we? Colorblind. Anyway, soon after this, I realized that I'm pregnant, and Ivan was thrilled about this. Well, fast forward a little bit after I find out that I'm pregnant, he casually admits to me one day that he did it on purpose because he was afraid that I would leave him whenever I went off to college. Fast forward, things got worse when I found out that he had got another girl pregnant, but she was 7 months along. Not only that, but his mom thought that we had been broken up. So I end things with him. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend got myself and another girl pregnant at the same time. So like I said, he admitted that he got me pregnant so that way I wouldn't leave him whenever I went to college. So I broke up with him, and while I'm dealing with my pregnancy, I lost one of my closest friends, and then I lost my baby 6.5 months in. But despite all of this, I finished high school and got into college and started volunteering at a hospital. And y'all will not believe this shit. The one day, I run into Ivan at the hospital that his girlfriend is giving labor in. And he has the nerve to sit there and apologize and say that he wanted our family back. And that's whenever I told him, sir, our baby's gone. Like, I lost that shit. So then later, he called me and he asked if I was pregnant again. But I just blocked him and his whole family after they kept trying to guilt trip me into getting back with him, even though he literally had a baby with another girl. Fast forward, over a decade later, I've graduated, I have a great job, a house, and I'm engaged to the love of my life, and we're planning to start a family, and I've healed through a lot of therapy. Ivan's married and has kids, but he's still living this drama-filled life.
Am I an asshole for lying to my boyfriend about being pregnant just to keep him in a relationship? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sent me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost 5 years. Granted, we did break up throughout those 5 years. With all the breakups, we've actually been together for about 3 years. I've never considered myself an obsessive person, but when it comes to him, something just takes over me. Here's some of the reasons why we broke up. At first, he didn't want to be in a relationship even though I begged him, which I know was so dumb of me. So he eventually broke up with me and told me that he didn't want anything serious. But he kept on calling me every single week because he wanted the dirty. Instead, I started going out on other dates and I would flaunt it all over my social media. And this worked. It made him super jealous and he came right back to me. Called me up one day and told me that he wanted me back. The second time we broke up, I caught him talking to some girls on Facebook. When I confronted him, he broke up with me. Told me I was too nosy and that he needed to live his life as a single man. We finally got back together. I told him that it was for marriage. He said yes, that he would eventually ask me to marry him. A few months ago, he started acting really cold towards me. He would barely call me, and when we were together, he would never touch me. That's when I started digging in his phone and I found that he was talking to some girls on Instagram. But I knew that if I confronted him, I would risk him breaking up with me again. So I did the next logical thing. I waited until I saw him again and I told him that I was pregnant. I even started to cry to make him feel like I was happy. His face turned completely white and he asked me if I was sure. I said, yes, aren't you happy, baby? Part 2 is up. Am I the asshole for lying to my boyfriend about being pregnant just so that I could keep him in a relationship? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. I sent him on Instagram. That's when he started to cry. Remember, I don't even have a pregnancy test to show or anything. But surprisingly, he didn't ask for proof of my pregnancy. He just kept crying on the couch. I asked him if he was happy, but clearly he was not. But he lied and said, yeah, of course I'm happy. Seeing how vulnerable he was, I took advantage of the situation and I brought up marriage. I told him we should get engaged soon so that we could tell his family. Then he said, are you sure you want to get married? And I said, of course, we're gonna have a baby. Then he sat there for a minute and thought about it. Finally, he got down on one knee and said, do you want to marry me? I said, yes! And this time I cried for real. All my dreams were coming true. After that, things started moving really fast. We invited both our families to my apartment and we hosted a dinner. We broke the news to them that I was pregnant. Again, nobody asked for proof of the pregnancy though. Our families were so happy and excited. That very same night, he gave me a beautiful engagement ring. His mom even started planning the baby shower. Let me remind you, I'm actually not pregnant. So I had to come up with a plan. You'll never guess what I did. Part 3 is, am I an asshole for lying to my boyfriend about being pregnant just to keep him in a relationship? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sent me on Instagram. His mom started planning the baby shower and there was no turning back. Even my mom got involved in the planning of the baby shower. So like I said, I'm really not pregnant at this point. So I started trying to get pregnant, but my damn boyfriend just wouldn't touch me. I decided to check his phone again and saw that he was still talking to some girls on Instagram. So I decided to confront him at this point. I mean, we are engaged and I'm supposedly pregnant with his baby. I confronted him and he just got angry at me. He said that if he was gonna marry me and have a baby with me, he would need to talk to other girls and that was not a negotiation for him. Then he confessed that he was seeing 2 other girls on the side and that there was no way he was gonna stop seeing them and that I couldn't do anything about it. But his confession actually made me fall out of love with him. Now I'm planning to break up with him. But what do I do about the fake pregnancy? I do want to make him pay for what he said to me, but I don't want to hurt our families either. Should I just come clean? What should I do?